I have a window that has security bars on it, which I like, but I'm not crazy about the vibe or the look of the bars. So I wanted to make two improvements. One is to make the bars more hidden and make the view out the window more appealing, and also add a little bit of privacy. So I brainstormed on the ideas I could possibly do to improve this. One was to put a plant outside the window. And then the second idea was to take one of those boxes that you sort of hang on the outside of the window and put some plants in that. Ultimately, I decided to go with artificial ivy and shape the window the way I wanted to shape it. So I'm basically starting by taking off the screen, and then I'm just going to clean the bars and the windows off as much as I can. And then I researched some artificial ivy on Amazon that had the right look. They come in basically 4 bags. These individual vines are over 6 feet each, and there are about 48 of them total. So that would give me just about the right amount to do this window. Here it is, just unwinding it a little bit and taking a look at it and just taking them apart, seeing what kind of quality they are. And it's interesting when you get real close up on them, you can almost see through them. It's the point where they almost look artificial, but unless you get really close, they just look like regular plants. Pollen and the leaves are on there. I didn't have any breakage when I put them on. So the first step I did was take them all apart and then individually lay them out on the table so I could easily grab them one by one and put them on. And initially I didn't really know exactly how I would put them on, if I needed ties or anything. But it turns out when I put the initial ones on, I just sort of tie the ends and then wrap them around the individual bars just to start them off. And I wanted to wrap them around each of the bars. So they're pretty thin, which is good because you can thicken them up a lot easier than you can thin them out. So at this point, it's just wrapping them around the bars. And then here it is next to a white wall. And still wrapping them around the bars at this point. You can see it's getting thicker. And then there's the first bag, which is bag 1 out of 4. And now we're opening bag 2. It's interesting how you can see the real leaves on the tree outside. They really blend in nicely. And then there's an example of the neighboring window I want to get some privacy from. So I'm going to fill up that spot a little bit thicker than the others. Continuing to thicken up that one spot. We're on to the third bag. And here I'm not wrapping them around each bar anymore. I'm just sort of hanging them over. And now we're on to the last bag. Grabbing them from where they're laid out so I can just concentrate on getting them hung the way I want. I've also thickened it up quite a bit to sort of hide the top of the bars a little bit. I'm not looking to hide it 100%, but just to the point where you're focusing more on the ivy rather than the bars. And here is the final thickness, so it's nice and thick, hiding out that window. The bottom is a little thinner. And then I have a little bit of a gap on the right so I can still look out the window. And then we're just going to pop on the screen. And here it is with the screen on. And now here it is with the shears down, so it's very subtle. And there it is with the window closed. Blends in very nice. I think it'd be pretty hard for anyone to know those are artificial plants. And it's a lot better energy to look out those shears and see that ivy out there rather than the bars, but yet still having the safety of the bars. And they look pretty unified with the artificial ivy and the real tree on the other 2 windows. I never had to go outside in order to install this ivy. So you could potentially do this on any window, a 2nd story, a 3rd story, because it has that flexibility with installing it. It looked a lot better on the outside than I had anticipated and really blends into that tree nicely. Really happy how that turned out, especially for about $30.